We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. Real estate broker Gabriela Lira is with us from Compass, talking about real estate in the marketplace, what it looks like right now. If you'd like to ask a question or comment, 737-7587. You know that dreaded word sometimes you hear, and we touched on whether or not things are overinflated, the price. It's different now when you hear about bubble. Okay, real estate bubble, and the whole idea of will it burst, and we all go back to 2007, 2008. The loaning practices, the lending practices from banks, because of that horrible situation we went through with Lehman Brothers and all that, that's changed things. It's hard, yes. Right? So in a way, there may be inflation, but you're not worried as much about bunch of horrible loans out there.
Oh no, people that are getting loans nowadays, they actually qualify for the loan. They have credit worthiness. People that were getting loans back then, they were getting no income verification loans. I mean, it was just absolutely crazy what was happening then. And so a lot of regulations have come into place, better practices. So it's fundamentally different from what happened then.
Okay, so do you think there is some type of bubble, or does that even define what we see happening right here that could burst down the road?
I do not believe that there is a bubble, and certainly not like we saw before. And part of the low inventory is a result of what happened then. So then builders overbuild to keep up with that demand, and they lost hard because a lot of the people getting those loans didn't really qualify, went bankrupt. And so they scaled back, and they were much more conservative in how they built. So now, there's so much demand, and they were not prepared for that.
Okay.
COVID also.
Yeah, talk about that.
So COVID was also a big contributor in tight inventory, and that is because home builders were having a hard time getting things. I was driving by houses that were completely at a standstill because the builders couldn't get windows in, they couldn't get appliances, they couldn't get a lot of the materials that are needed to finish these homes, get a certificate of occupancy, and get a buyer in there.
The two of us were talking during the commercial break, and she was sharing with me that within the last couple of years, she's built a home that you bought that was recently built. Same thing with me. We had built a home with some property we had bought. And I looked at some of the prices. I remember at one point, after our home was just about done, our builder came and said, look at this piece of plywood, Nick. And he held it up, one that he was using.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, this plywood when we were building your home was $12 a sheet. It is now $70 a sheet.
Yes. Okay,
increased more than 6 times its price almost. And he just goes, that's telling. And so I'm wondering if that's also part of it. The inventory, not just that, there's not a lot of homes as many being built, but I mean, when they are built, it's costing a lot more to build them, so they have to sell them for more as well. And that's not being driven by demand as much. It's just that, hey, labor and cost of supplies.
Labor. There is a labor shortage for sure.
Yeah. Boy, you're lucky if you can get a good contract. That's what's scary. I would not want to build now. And you and I both sold our home that we lived in to buy our new home at some point. And people say, boy, if you just waited a couple years, you could. And I could have. Our home would have sold for $200,000 more, probably a year and a half later. I don't regret it for a moment. We got what we thought was good.
Sure.
But what we ended up with would cost us at least $500,000 now to have built what we did.
Oh, yes.
And so I don't regret it at all, but boy, these days the costs are crazy.
Yeah, and it's not just in the housing market. Everywhere you go, you see a help needed sign, right?
Yeah.
So we are just having a labor shortage everywhere right now. And the other thing, to your point, lumber prices, right? So we all heard that lumber prices just skyrocketed, and builders had to protect themselves. So now when you see builder contracts, you see that little new clause in there that states that if prices go up from what they believed they were going to pay for this applies, they could pass on that charge to you.
And then boom, you've had your budget, and then it goes out of the way. And that even happened a little bit to us down this. When you build a home, I don't know if you noticed this. I mean, when you build a home, you budget for it, but it's always going to be a little more expensive than you thought.
Scope creep.
right?
Yes, always.
It's
Go
because
pre.
there's things you don't anticipate, or like you said, the prices go up a bit. You just don't know.
Sure, and then you change your mind, and we all do as humans, right? And you see this beautiful backsplash that you want,
Right.
or that waterfall island that you just must have. And so it does end up costing you more. And if you're me, when you close, you take on additional projects. So we built a wine cellar after that.
Geez, yeah.
And then we did our backyard, put in a fireplace.
Those things all add up.
So they all add up.
All right, let's take a call from Sheila next on the horn. Sheila, good morning. Hi, Sheila.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
My question is, can you explain selling a house as is? Does that entail that you still have to fill out a disclosure, and that if you do sell your house and they find something, that they can come back and sue you because you didn't tell them?
Okay.
And so you didn't know because, you're just selling it as is. But could you explain that procedure for me?
Great
Sure.
question. Thank you.
You do still need to fill out a Tennessee property condition disclosure, and you want to. This is for your protection as the seller, so that situations like that where someone finds something once they've moved in and they figure out that you knew about it and you hid it, so situations like that don't happen where they then turn around and sue you. You want to disclose. But we are seeing a lot of people selling their houses as is, and the buyer, then their agent, educates them on what that means. That means that seller has disclosed everything they know. As a buyer, you still can do an inspection. It just means that the seller will not fix any of the items that you find. And in this market, a lot of buyers are either waiving their inspection contingency anyway, or they are doing what's called a pass-fail inspection, meaning that they are going to still do an inspection, but at the culmination of that, they're going to either pass you because they didn't find anything that they deemed earth-shattering to terminate the contract, or they're going to fail you because they found structural issues or something that was major that would prohibit them from moving forward with the contract.
Wow, okay, I didn't really understand the way that, I'm so glad she asked that. So when you advertise as is, that means the seller still, as you said, let's just say, there's
Leak in the roof.
Yeah, there's a leak in the roof, and there's some plumbing issues that maybe need to be addressed in the back bathroom. You have to reveal that, and the buyer will see that, okay?
Yes.
But it's all disclosed. Now, there may be some things you don't know about that's messed up with the house, right? That you didn't know to put down there.
Sure,
Right?
there might be some things that you as a seller you don't know.
But as is, all right, you're buying it as is. Now, you could send in an inspector yourself to look at it, and they'll tell you what it is before you do it. When people, I always thought, now, in my mind, I understand they do this to improve their chances of getting the home. Waiving the inspection or whatever.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I wouldn't do it. When you're making an investment that big, you waive that and you get in there and all of a sudden find out there's termites everywhere. You are toast.
So in this market, buyers are behaving in a very risky manner because they have no choice.
Yes.
If you want a house and you want to compete with Joe Smith over here, then you have to waive your inspection sometimes to be competitive.
Just now, does that the bank though? If you're paying cash maybe for a house, you can do that. But I mean, bank's not going to give you a loan, are they, for a house if you don't do an inspection?
They will.
They will now.
Yeah, the bank will still require, depending on the type of loan you're getting. I should just that caveat.
Meaning that you're still going to have to pay them whether that house collapses the next day or not, right? Yeah.
True, they do send out an appraiser. If you are getting a loan, the bank will send out an appraiser. And some people in this market are completely waiving their appraisal contingency or doing what's called an appraisal gap coverage. So this is what an appraisal gap coverage is. They say, okay, well, you're listed for $300. I'm giving you an offer for $350. If the house does not appraise at $350, I will cover the gap between the purchase price of $300 and the $350 that I'm offering you.
I was going to ask you, so banks can still do appraisals, and if the price of the house doesn't match up with this, they're going to say, we're not going to give you a loan for what they're asking. You have to cover that. Again, you hit it on the head. Buyers are taking risks. Have you had some scenarios with buyers where you're like, look, if you really want to have this house, you're going to have to waive the inspection or something like that? And
well,
then,
I don't quite say it like
okay,
that.
How do you say it to them? Well, I mean, it's their choice. Say, now, look,
Sure.
there's risk involved here, but I know there's going to be some other buyers that are going to say, we'll waive this. If you want to be in the mix, it's up to you. How do you put it to them?
Sure. So we educate. So part of my job is to educate you. Here are your options, and here are the pros and cons of every action that you can possibly take. Okay, you waive your appraisal contingency. That means that if it falls short, you're bringing that cash to the table. Okay, you're waiving your inspection contingency, but when you come in, when you move in, you might find X, Y, and Z, and it might cost you this much. So I'm just helping them to make informed decisions.
Right, okay, and they'll just have to make that call. Have you had anyone get burned by that? Where
No.
they got in there and realized, oh my gosh, we waived it and we just discovered something really wrong with this house?
I have not, thankfully, knock on wood.
But it could happen. It wouldn't be on you. I mean, you don't know. I mean, there is just some risk involved there.
Absolutely.
People are that desperate for homes. You know, do you get mailers sometimes? I mean, we have a little piece of property next to us, and I'll get letters all the time from all around the country saying, and they have the address and everything, are you interested in selling this property? Just cold, out of the blue. I'm sure they're from these investors,
Sure.
right?
They are from investors. They are from builders and developers who are in the same place as buyers, right? They're buyers also. They're looking for land. They're looking for land to build.
They're just going cold on it. They haven't even seen it. But they look through records and they say, well, this Barris guy's got some land here that is perked, and let's just make him an offer.
Yeah, so they've done some due diligence either by identifying the neighborhoods where they would like to be in, or certain streets, or certain size lots, right? So you are being targeted somehow. We just don't know what those parameters are, but they are out there like every other buyer trying to find land so that they can build, because that's their bread and butter,
Yeah.
right? They have to build houses in order to sell them and get paid.
I don't blame them. I mean, you're right. They found me somehow, and I don't begrudge them that, but I'm not really in a position to sell, and I just kind of say, hey, but you know, it must work to some degree. The fact that those come out and I'm getting them means a lot of people do, and maybe they send out 1,000 of them, and maybe 1 or 2. It just happens to hit maybe an elderly couple that hasn't thought about it, and all
That's
of a sudden
right.
they realize, hey, they're coming to us, they'll sell, it's a good price, and they
I don't
make their
have to
sale.
show it. I don't have to clean it.
Right.
It is going to be easy. And so there are situations where selling to a builder or a developer is a great idea.
Yeah.
It's just not for everybody.
Take a break on that note. Come back with our final segment with our great guest right after this. Stay with us. So many of the